with you. My name is Aisha Howard, morning news anchor with 11 Alive News, weekdays 4:30 a.m. until 7. It is my distinct pleasure to interview the great Stacey Abrams. We are here to have an intimate conversation, have the opportunity to spend some time with her backstage. She is real and raw and uncut, and we are so happy to be here with you, celebrating all things women. We ready to get started? All right, let's go. All right, so I didn't hear what they played for us when we walked out. What are you listening to these days? What would have been your intro song?
So, right now, because it just makes the most sense, it's Freedom by Beyonce.
All right, all right.
It sort of works at any moment, but right now, this moment, it really works.
Do you have boots on the ground?
Always.
Always, 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 always. All right, so we know what that is, right? All right. So now, as we sit here and talk to you today, I think a lot of people are looking to you at this moment. What would Stacey do? What is Stacey thinking about the state of the nation, the state of our state as it relates to women? What is the role of women in particular right now with what we see happening in our country?
Aisha, thank you for the question. First job is to know what's going on. And I know there is a tendency, an instinct to want to go inside. It's called internal exile. It's not just you. When things are overwhelming, when there is chaos, when there is harm, when there are real people when it's not paranoia, they really are after you, there's a tendency to want to internalize and to just step back. And that's not the wrong thing to do, but it's not the only thing to do. So our first job is to know what's going on. One of the things I've been able to do this year is I launched a podcast called Assembly Required. And I use that podcast every week to talk about issues that are happening, to talk about when you hear this big notion, when you hear about crypto or you hear about the latest executive order, I don't want you to have to try to do 20 pages of research. I want to know what it means, because if we know what's attacking us, we can then figure out step 2, which is what does it mean for us? Because not everything that's being done is about us. Sometimes we're just collateral damage. And particularly for women in this moment, it's important for us to understand the world, but then to see our place in it. And that's the second job. How does it affect me? And then the third responsibility is, what do I do? So on my show, we do a call to action every single week. We have, be curious, so know what's going on, solve problems, know why it matters to you, and then do something good. And too often we think if we can't fix everything, we can't fix anything. But I want us to remember, especially as women in this moment, that before we had money, before we had power, before we had the Atlanta Expo, we had each other. And that the work that's being done right now, the work to undo us, hopes that we forget that. Hope that we forget that we were able to do things before we had the resources. I grew up with, my mother called us the genteel poor. We had no money, but we watched PBS and we read books. We didn't have much, but my dad would say having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing. And so for women in this moment, we've got to remember that we've been able to do for ourselves for a very long time. There are structures that have made it easier. There is power that's made it faster, but there is nothing that will ever replace our ability to do for each other.
And so for a lot of women, you may feel like this in your own personal career. You may be trying to, climb the ladder, and you feel defeated with every step that you take. We've witnessed you take defeat and get back up and get back in the ring. What do you say to women who are ready to give up? How do you keep pushing, and where does that strength come from?
Look, I've not just not gotten things, I've not publicly gotten things. And what I know is that the expectation is that when you try hard and it doesn't work, you should be defeated and you should disappear. But that's only if what you were going for was public intention and public attention. I look at what was I trying to do? What was the work that needed to be done? I may not get the job or the title, but the work remains. And if we define ourselves by someone else's standard of our success, then we're always going to lose, because they'll just change the definition. I do all of my work beginning with, what do I think I need to do? How do I show up? And I measure myself against how well did I show up. If I did a partial job, then okay. But if I know I did everything in my power and I didn't leave a thing behind, I know that I can make mistakes. I know that I can have faults. I know that I can stumble. But if I stay down, then they've won anyway. My job is to make sure I measure myself by my intention and my activity, not by my outcome. If we are only judged by our outcome, we don't live in a society organized for us. So when we win under their rules, they're gonna go fix that. And if we only judge ourselves by what people see in us and never by what we intended for ourselves and by our effort, that's our job. I judge myself by my effort. I am very, very good at doing the things I think need to be done irrespective of the outcome. I can't control the outcome, but I can control my input. I can control what I do. And if you are in a place where you're not getting everything you think you deserve, the focus is not on what you deserve, it's what are you putting into what you want. Because sometimes by doing that, you realize that's not the thing you wanted in the first place, and maybe it's time to move on. Or maybe it's time to move on from him, depending on who it is.
Ooh, and ooh. Okay, we know he's gonna get a little love advice too, right?
I write romance novels too, come on.
If you need to move on, go ahead and move on. Stacey Abrams said get up and go, okay? So I think we want to stay kind of in the pocket right there. What do you say to women who kind of feel a little unmotivated, and what's that greatest quality that we should be cultivating? It seems like you've cultivated some qualities that kind of took you over when maybe you didn't feel your best and the motivation wasn't there. They say discipline is doing something even when you don't want to do it. So what are some of those skills and tools we should be cultivating?
So I've written a lot of books. So my first nonfiction was called Lead from the Outside. And the first 3 chapters I think are really important. The first chapter is ambition. We have the right to want more, and we've got to believe that we have the right to want more. Say ambition. Ambition. We too often mistake being self-deprecating for being humble. Self-deprecating says, I can't do it. Humble says, I'm not the only one, but I am good at it. We've got to stop. Our first job is to be ambitious. Our second job is to understand that fear is real. It is not a figment of your imagination. When I was younger than you, I used to do a speech where I talked about being fearless. And I apologize. Fearless is, rich people who have no problems are fearless. Everybody else, we've got something to worry about. And the thing about fear is not do you have fear, but what do you let fear do? If fear is a warning system, if fear is a guidance system, then that's okay, because it's saying, look out for this and prepare. Navigate this and know what it's like. Know that you're going to confront this and figure out what you're going to do on the other side. But when fear stops you, when it paralyzes you, when it convinces you that you are not enough, that's when fear takes over. And so first job is ambition. Second job is to know your fear. I take my fear out to lunch. I figure out its favorite meal. We get to know each other really well. And then your third job is power. And too often we don't talk about power. Power doesn't belong simply to those who want it. Power belongs to those who are willing to take it, and the people who are willing to share it have even more. We have the ability to set our outcomes and determine our reactions, and that is real power. When other people can tell you if you are good or not, they've got your power. So we have to have the ambition to want, the intelligence to know that fear is real, but the power to navigate it no matter what happens. And if we do those 3 things, we can get a lot done.
And so for women in particular, a lot of women may feel, stifled by just, I can't have it all. This is too much, I feel like I'm drowning, career, work, or maybe I should just stay comfortable at this level. I think I'm really comfortable right here, so I don't want to go for more. I think you've kind of reached, the highest of heights, and even if you feel like there's more to do, what do you say to women about pursuing careers at this level, advocacy? You don't just do it for yourself either, right? You're doing this for people that you love and that you care about. You're sharing the knowledge. How do you respond to people when they say, can you have it all? So for Stacey Abrams, By doing the work at this level, what have you gained and what have you had to give up?
So I'll start, Aisha, with this. Work-life balance is a lie. It is a lie. I would use an expletive, but I'm on stage and there's a camera. It's a lie. We all have work-life Jenga. Have you ever played Jenga? You basically stack up all those sticks, all those blocks, and you have to start pulling pieces out. And the reality is with Jenga, eventually the tower is going to fall. Things are going to collapse. Something is going to go wrong. When you think it's balanced, when something falls, you think, well, I did it wrong. When it's Jenga, you knew it was going to happen, so you prepare for what's next. My life is nothing but a very elaborate game of Jenga. I believe in doing public service. I believe poverty is immoral. I believe it is economically inefficient. I think it is wrong, and so I spend my life doing work to lift people up and to make certain they have the economic opportunity, civic opportunity, real opportunity, and that's why I do voting rights. It's why I do environmental work. It's why I do the work I do, because I believe that poverty is wrong. But I also have a creative side. So I write romance novels. I write children's books. I have a new legal thriller coming out on July 15th, so don't forget it. And you can go read the first two before that. I have a podcast. I do things for the creative side of my brain. I do things for the communication responsibility that I have. I do things because of the moral commitment I have. But I know I can't do all of them all at once. So my job in Jenga is to stack them up and decide what's the thing I'm going to focus on today. And then what's the thing I'm going to focus on tomorrow. And sometimes it's going to be the same thing 10 days in a row. But on day 11, I've got to switch. And if I haven't structured my tower enough, and this is discipline, I've got to figure out if I pull this block and it all falls down, how am I going to rebuild it? What am I going to learn from it collapsing? So often we are so overwhelmed by the collapse, we forget that we built it in the first place. And if you built it before, you can build it again. And you might build it differently. You might borrow somebody else's block. You might look at someone else's tower and be like, that was really smart. I'm going to rearrange. That's okay. But when we think that our only solution is to have perfect information and perfect success, we are setting ourselves up for perfect failure.
And where did this sort of knowledge and this version of Stacey Abrams come from? Like, was there a defining moment that happened in your life? Because I think sometimes for us, we may go through something and that may be the moment that can shape us and we may miss it. So what was that sort of defining moment when you said, this is my life's work, this is my life's purpose, regardless of how hard it is, regardless of what I have to give up?
I think I've spent my life in pursuit of what I consider justice. I'm the daughter of two, my parents were pastors. Before then, my mom was a librarian, my dad was a shipyard worker, but they were always very engaged in social justice. They were civil rights activists as teenagers. So I grew up with the belief that you have a responsibility to do. My mom would say, no matter how little we have, there is someone with less, your job is to serve that person. So my ethic was always with me. But when I ran for governor in 2018, when I lost that race, that was a clarifying moment, because that year I was the most Googled politician in the world. And I did not get the job, and everybody knew it. There had been a lot made of my attempt, and there was a lot made of me not getting that job. And that's a moment where you decide who you're going to be. I could have tucked my head down and pretended it didn't happen. I could have abandoned my beliefs and said, I'm just going to go and get mine. But the moment I knew who I was the day I stood up and said, I'm not going to give in to this. I'm going to fix what I thought was broken, and you're not going to get rid of me that easily. Just because I didn't get the job does not mean the work doesn't need to be done. And when I realized that I meant it, when I saw that I could survive it, when I avoided going to the airport for weeks because I didn't want to see other humans, and I walk into the airport, and you know, it's hard to miss me. And this gentleman runs up to me and hugs me. I'm like, who are you, stranger? Back up off me. But he said, thank you. He was like, thank you for what you did. Thank you for showing up. And I think that's the part we have to hold to. There are defining moments, but they are defined by who we were and then what we do with that moment. but there's no moment where the clouds part and the beam of light shines down. We don't get our road to Damascus moments. What we got to do is remember we're always on the road to Damascus, and we got to keep going towards the place we're intended to be and not be distracted and try to go the other way.
And because you talked about that experience, we know you tried it again as well.
I did?
You did.
I did.
You tried it again as well. And you know, we're at a women's conference. The girls like to sip tea, spill tea, and we want to know if you have something steeping, Ms. Abrams. Will we see a run for governor from Stacey Abrams again?
Aisha, you are an amazing reporter. And I am so grateful that you have a host of questions to ask, and I think there's another one on your card.
Well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. We did not get the exclusive, and guess what? In the spirit of Ms. Abrams, just because I didn't get that one doesn't mean that I won't keep trying again, right?
Point well taken.
I'm learning as we speak, and I'm applying it as we speak. What is your advice to women who believe that the state of DE&I is not our role and responsibility and that we don't have a fight there? What is the role of women as it relates to DE&I?
Okay, so DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. DEI is not something that came into being in a boring HR meeting 10 years ago. It has been around for 249 years, and I can prove it. The Revolutionary War was fought because a group of people thought that their diversity wasn't respected, their equity wasn't acknowledged, and they weren't included, so they fought a war. And the rest of us have been fighting that war ever since. We have been fighting the war so that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment acknowledge the humanity of black people. We fought that war so the 19th Amendment in Title IX said that women have the right to get an education, to cast a vote, to have a credit card, to buy a house, and to have the ambition of being anything in this world we want to be. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act that said that because you are differently able does not mean you are less than human, and we fought and made certain that that law was passed. The Immigration and Nationalization Act said in the United States of America, being a person of color meant that you could come to this country and you did not have to come by servitude, you could come by success. We are a DEI nation, and that is our superpower. Those who do not like it are afraid of competition. They are afraid of diversity because diversity means all people. It means every community. It means that transgender communities are just as real and just as human. It talks about making certain that Native Americans in 1921, when they finally got citizenship in the land that was theirs, that's DEI. Diversity is all people. Equity simply means that we have a fair shot at opportunity. And when you hear people complain about DEI, it's because they thought they were going to get it without having to work for it. Equity is about making sure we all have a shot at it. And sometimes that means correcting 240 years of bad action so we can have 10 years of progress. And then inclusion means that being different does not mean being disqualified. We should be terrified, not of DEI, but of those who would strip us of our ability to be a part of the American dream. They are not going against DEI because it's a failure. They're upset because it's working. I want you all to look around this space. They're upset because this is what DEI looks like. It's women who get to hold the microphone and the camera and the checkbook. It's people of color who do not think that they are less than because they don't see themselves everywhere. And they know that in 17 years, the United States of America, for the first time in our history, will be a nation without a single racial majority. And they are doing everything in their power now to convince us that we've already lost. But I'm here to tell you, we are not only already winning, we've won. We just can't let them take it away from us. If you don't say DEI every day, you are letting them win. DEI means that we have done everything intended, and we are going to keep doing it every single day.
And finally, let's take it to the pod. We're going to end this Stacey Abrams podcast style. What is the call to action for this room?
First of all, I need you all to subscribe to my podcast. look, we're here about women in their business, and this is my business. So it's assembly required. Say assembly required. In fact, if you have your phone, take your phone out and go ahead and Google Stacey Abrams assembly required. And sign up. I need you to subscribe to my podcast. If you are upset about the men who have all those followers, it's because we follow them, but we don't follow each other. So sign up and subscribe and follow my podcast. And if you like it, say so. If you don't, keep it to yourself. But the reason I want you the more important reason for signing up for the podcast, we need to know what they are doing. The chaos is the point. They think that if they overwhelm us with all of the terrible things they're doing, if we can't follow the thread, then we get lost. You don't have to know everything. In fact, I love the movie title, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is a great title for a movie. It is a terrible personal mission statement. But we can all do something somewhere soon. And so listen to the pod and then find one issue that matters to you. It can be hunger. It can be homelessness. It can be domestic violence. It can be sexual assault. It can be disability rights. It can be transgender rights. It doesn't matter what it is, but the thing that wakes you up in the morning smiling or worries you when you go to bed, that's your thing. And then once a week, I need you to do something about that thing, whether it's putting it on your social media, whether it is listening and learning something, volunteering some of your time, but every week for the next 6 weeks, I want you to do one thing to advance the cause you believe in. Because if we all do one thing, then we are doing everything. They cannot stop us all. They might try to shut me down, but they can't shut me up. And if we do this together, we will change everything. Thank you so much.
Atlanta Women's Expo, we want to thank you all for joining us and for being such an engaging audience. We hope that you were inspired, and we hope that you respond to that call to action. Ms. Stacey Abrams, we thank you so much for your time and for your continued dedication to advocacy and
Please help me
equality.
thank Aisha for what she's done today. Thank you. Follow her on 11 Alive.